Let's talk about some imminent top 100 guys and kind of just I think what the cool thing about this is I always feel like the top 100 list, it's always this big secret. And it's always this thing that, oh, like we don't want to tell anybody what we're going to do here, and then we're going to unveil it and it's going to really hit everybody hard. And I do like the suspense that comes with that. But the more I've thought about it, I'm like, I kind of want to peel back the curtain here and, allow our listeners who, sign up to listen to us rant about prospects all the time to have a little bit of a clue of what the process is right now. And obviously there's a lot of things that are going on in terms of conversations I'm having. I can't share everything that I hear and everything that I'm able to dig up all the time, but I feel like we can talk about some of the, tough deliberations that have to come with it. Some of the things that I have to, try to sort through as we sift through dozens and dozens and dozens of names for these, top 100 spots. And I just want to we're still in the preliminary process of continuing to iron out some of the names that are going to tap into this top 100 list. But I just want to talk about the guys that are playing so well that we don't have a choice but to consider them. And I figured there's nobody better, and we didn't even talk about him on text, but I feel like we have to talk about him to start off. There's nobody better than a guy that's been on our top 100 list in the past, kind of got passed over because of all of the youth talent coming up in the recent draft, but now is forcing himself back on. It's Mark Vientos of the Mets. And I wanted to talk about Vientos with you because he's a really interesting case. We throw around prospect fatigue all the time. Here's another classic candidate of that. He's 23, Jack, and a young 23. Like, he's closer to 23 than he is 24. And just going off in AAA probably could help the Mets right now, given their DH situation, yet, he's probably not going to get the call. In AAA right now, 33 games, he's hitting 353, 444, 714. It's an 1158 OPS. He's striking out 20% of the time, which is the lowest clip of his career. He's walking 13% of the time. Zone contact is 78%. Like, that'll play when you're hitting the ball as hard as he does, 110 mile per hour, 90th percentile exit velocity. Chase rate might be the lowest of his career. He looks fantastic, Jack. I got to do a defense dive, but he's been playing a lot of third base for what that's worth. They're not just saying, hey, play first and mash. He's playing third. I'll have to dig into the video. I admittedly have not done that yet. But the bat, it's hard to deny 11 home runs through 33 games, and none of them are cheap. This dude hits the crap out of the ball to all fields. And at 23, like if he was 24, 25, I don't know if we're considering him as seriously, but he's playing third and he's 23. It's similar to the Ronnie Mauricio situation where it's like you can't deny the offensive production, and he's still young.
Yeah. Vientos pretty much even split so far this year. Last year, for the most part, he was a third baseman, right? He played about 250 more innings at third than he did at first. It's been dead even at this point. 131 innings at third, 127 at first. So it's like, hey, you're at third one day, you're at first the other day. He's absolutely a top 100 guy. I'm thinking, does he graduate? And he's about 30 plate appearances shy of graduating. I don't think the answer is yes right now, because the Mets, for some reason, want to keep on giving all these dudes auditions. And I love that Beatty is up as the third baseman, but first base, obviously there's no space with Alonso. But DH, I mean, they're going with, this weird piece it together thing. Vogelbach is still kicking around there. I don't know. Huge fan of Dan Vogelbach, but if you got to DFA him to get Vientos in that role, do it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see him up there. This is a different Vientos, I think, too, that we saw from last year when they brought him up, who was swinging it well, but not to this degree. And the approach, I don't think, was as good. I think he got a taste last year, figured it out a little bit, what wasn't right, what he was struggling with. And I think this puts him in a spot here where I would absolutely like to see him up as soon as possible, but I don't think he will be up that soon, which is the funny part about it. He could be a phenomenal trade chip as well, which is, yeah. I'm very fascinated to see how the Mets want to approach this. I think they got to look at, Mauricio, look at Vientos. I think the defensive ability of Mauricio kind of allows them to feel more comfortable in holding on to him. But I would say the bat of Vientos is a little bit more trustworthy. So it's a really interesting decision that they will have to make if they do want to make a trade. I assume they're not going to trade from, any of the recent draftees unless it's a something really special there. that they can do, like to go get an Edwin Diaz or something like that, like they did with Kelenic, and a Robinson Cano for whatever that's worth. But yeah, I'm very interested to see how they maneuver here. But I will say this: if Vientos does get traded, that's a guy that will go straight to a big league lineup immediately. If he's traded to presumably a rebuilding team, I did it with the Orioles the other day, and Jordan Westburg. I listed all the teams that Jordan Westburg could probably start on, or at least get significant at bats on right now. And I think it's like half the league. I think Mark Vientos is in a similar territory, probably not as many, like 8 to 10 teams though right now, where Mark Vientos is probably getting regular at bats.
Yeah.
Next guy is someone that we both texted each other on, so I feel like we have to hit on him, almost off the top. Dalton Rushing of the Los Angeles Dodgers. This was a just missed guy, and when we did the Dodgers system, we talked about him a lot. Rushing is an awesome bat. Excuse me, someone that I just love to watch do his thing. Low swing rate, great swing decisions, good amount of contact, great approach, and hits the ball hard. Pull side powers plus. It is a little pull dependent, but he has the ability to hit the ball to all fields when he needs to. When he's leveraging his hitters counts, it's pull side. He hits the ball in the air a ton. It's really hard to invalidate what Rushing's doing offensively. I do wonder if he's going to stick behind the dish. I do think that the Dodgers see a lot more value in the stick, and that's why he's kind of been DHing more than he's been catching. It's been kind of an even split between DH and catch, and playing a little first base as well. That said, this is a top 100 bat.
Yes. I think the Dodgers have a catching surplus at this point. So they can trade a serious top 100 catcher for major league help at the deadline. What does that major league help look like? I'm not too sure. Hey, maybe it's a shortstop. Maybe Dalton Rushing goes to Chicago for Tim Anderson. If you think about that type of thing. I would love that. Yeah. I would love Cartaya for Tim Anderson, but Rushing is more certainly more acceptable for the Dodger fan base.
Yeah.
Rushing, he's hitting 280, but I mean the walk rate's insane. The walk rate's over 20%. He's got a 462 OBP. I mean, this guy he's taking it's the best version of, I guess, what we talk about with Julian, right? Offensively, where he's going to punch out a little bit, but he's never going to swing the bat. And when he does, he's going to do serious damage. Like that's what he's done in high A. This guy at 22 years old looks like he's primed for a jump to double.
His professional numbers overall must be absurd, because what he did in low A last year was even more ridiculous.
So this guy in 55 minor league games, hitting 349 with an 1171 OPS. He's got a 494 OBP, 55 games, 50 driven in, 50 walks, 51 punch outs in 55 games.
Yeah, that's insane. So defensive home is a question. And I do want to see that. I do think that, the log jam a little bit in the org of catching, depth is a part of the reason why he's not catching as much, because I don't think they'd just move him off that quick. But I also do think that they drafted him because of how much they like the bat. So it's going to be interesting to see. And the lack of clarity defensively does cloud the prospect shine a tad. But when you have this kind of bat, and he is a good athlete overall, I think this is a guy that's going to be flying up prospect list pretty soon, and probably will enter our top 100 list, right? And has a very, 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 very strong case right now. And I don't know if we'll be able to find 20 names more worthy than Dalton Rushing right now.
Yep.
We have a few other, I know that you sent a couple different names before saying goodnight. I want to go to Ty Madden, because Ty Madden is somebody that just, I think yesterday, turned out like a really, really solid start. I don't know if I have the app. I do have the numbers now in terms of like his velocity. His velocity's been up overall. We saw him in the mid to upper 90s at points at Texas. It's been a little bit up and down now. And I should say Tigers prospect, by the way, now sitting mid to uppers again and with life. And it's really taken off, and his command has been really solid overall. You pitched Ty Madden. I might have overlooked him, so I'll leave it to you, and then I'll kind of fill in the blanks. Why was Ty Madden a name that you wanted to, obviously because he's performing, but why specifically that you wanted to hit on Ty Madden?
Yeah, I mean, this guy's a 23-year-old in double. Like, I feel like the Tigers have swung and missed at a bunch of pitching prospects at this point, right? Like, Mize was 1-1. Mize is hurt. He didn't look like the Mize that I think they were promised. You've got Matt Manning. He didn't look like the Matt Manning that they were hoping would. Tarek Skubal worked out, but again, he's hurt. Alex Faedo didn't look like, they were hoping Alex Faedo would. Reese Olson is struggling a good bit in triple here at the start. So I'm thinking, all right, maybe the last hope, obviously you've got Job, but Ty Madden feels like the safest bet at this point. And this guy has flown under the radar to have a really good start to his minor league career. First 32 starts in the minor leagues. He's got an ERA under 3. He's punching out over 10 per 9. He's walking under 3 per 9. So this guy has been steady. He was steady in high A last year, had a low 3s. He was steady in double A for 7 starts last year. He had a high 2s, and now he's got a low 2s through 6 starts in double. I think this guy's ready to jump to triple, and he may be the one that sneaky becomes the most reliable for the Tigers.
And what stands out to me with him is, we always say like we like our pitchers smart and our hitters dumb, and that's always a joke. There's some really smart hitters that
Right.
Most of these guys are smart, but the reason behind it is pitching. The more inquisitive you are, the more you think, the more you can mix and match and use things to your advantage. That's why we see pitchers, even some of the best, calling their own pitches. With hitters, you don't want to overthink because it's already so hard and all the odds are stacked against you. But with Ty Madden, I've heard that this guy is just so inquisitive, like a super deep thinker, is always trying to maximize his arsenal, always open to, conversations about how he can get better. And, I think you've kind of seen that because he does continue to get better. He's tweaked his slider a little bit and he is just dotting it this year, Jack. 70% strike rate on the slider. And it has just been really unhittable because it's a really good pitch, but now he's commanding the heck out of it, east-west, even sometimes burying it at the perfect spots. When the fastball is mid-90s and you can spot that slider, you're going to have success. But the changeup has made a huge improvement for him as well. He's landing that more than 60% of the time for a strike. He only mixes that in about 10%, but that gives him a look for lefties. I think this guy's starting to figure himself out. And with a mid-90s fastball that can, flirt with 97, 98, sometimes 99, that slider and a fine changeup, he screams middle rotation arm to me with the floor of like a 4, with the way that this arsenal and the command looks. Big body. He's 6'3", 215. And you've got the ability between the ears to continue adjusting if you do hit a snag. And to me, I'd put a lot of stock in this guy being a big league arm, whether it's a 4 or a 3, we'll find out. But hell, man, if I feel confident about a guy being a 4, that's a top 100 prospect.
100%. And I want to see this guy get the bump to triple very soon. And with somebody like Ty Madden, like, he has not struggled. He didn't struggle at Texas. He hasn't struggled in the minor leagues. Like, I want to see him pushed to the point where he struggles. Because again, you mentioned how inquisitive he is, like how bright of a guy he is. He knows that like struggles are inevitable. I'm sure that he can get over the struggles quicker than some other guys who may wear it a little bit more. And that'll be really beneficial. And hey, you know what? If the struggles come at the big league level, Tigers aren't winning anything this year. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and speaking of the struggles, Wilmer Flores, who I think a lot of people had pegged ahead of him,
He's got like an 8.
He's got, I think it's now down to a 7.17 ERA in Double A right now. So Ty Madden leapfrogging him, and I'm not saying like Wilmer's cooked, but he's got some things he's got to work through. Madden's a guy that I think has a really strong case here to enter our top 100 list as we continue to flesh this all out. So I'm excited about him. I love the college arms that seem to just kind of fly through the minors quickly, and you can feel pretty safe about it and not really lose sleep about those kind of guys. And I think the Tigers needed that really badly in their organization as you kind of set the scene with some of the arms that they've drafted in the past. Another name that you pitched that I've been hearing more and more questions about, so I was excited to break him down, is Robbie Snelling, left-hander in that Padres organization. And man, the Padres can draft, man. The Padres, like, you can say what you want about AJ Preller, I think the reason why he is so quick to make these trades is that guy's got so much confidence in his organization's ability to draft. I'm not going to give him all the credit, but as a GM, it's knowing who to lean on and who to entrust. And obviously, he trusts whoever helps him and his team make these draft decisions because they do a great job. They're rarely picking very early, and a lot of the guys that they get late in the first or overslot in later rounds are fantastic. And I think Robbie Snelling has been kind of an example of another nice draft. So it's early, but I like what I've seen so far. And it seems like this was another one where, we look back and say, oh, yeah, he was taken at 39th overall out of high school. Man, when we do a redraft, he might go earlier if he continues looking the way he has looked because he has been lights out so far in low A. Again, it's just low A, but he looks a lot different than your typical high school lefty.
That's the thing, like hitter-friendly environment in Elsinore, and he is not allowing hits at all. 21 innings, 10 hits against, 2 earned runs. It's a .86 ERA. So honestly, it's just the numbers that jumped out to me with Robbie Snelling. I don't know much about Robbie Snelling, but what I do see, I like on the stat sheet, which is really interesting. And that's exactly where my mind went. Ah, crap. Preller did it again. Here we go. He's got
right?
more draft cap, or he's got more trade capital.
It's unbelievable. And so Snelling, I'll kind of set the scene for you, and then you can tell me if you like it or not. Well, first of all, he's 3-0 through his first 5 starts with a .86 ERA, 21 innings, 26 Ks. You mentioned the 10 hits. Fastball is already at 93, sitting 93, which I think is really impressive because a lot of times these high school lefties get drafted and they're closer to 90, 91. And like Frank Mazzucato, we'll talk about him as well as a really impressive arm, but he has 22 inches of induced vertical break, so it's fine. But Snelling, it's around 18, 19, 19 and a half, 20 inches of induced vertical break at 93 miles an hour. That's why he's not giving up much contact. That's one of the best fastballs guys at this lower level will see, and definitely one of the best that they'll see from a left-handed pitcher. The other thing that stands out to me with Snelling is he's way more polished than I think. Oh, and I think he was viewed as one of the more polished left-handed pitchers in that draft. But still, I think a lot more polished than people would have expected as a 6'3 lefty that's 19 years old. 64% strike rate across his arsenal, and it's pretty even from the fastball curve change. And he sprinkled in a slider a little bit. Fastball average is 93, curve average is around 81, changeup average is 85, 86, and he's landing all of those for strikes. I kind of like the change so far a little bit more than the curveball from what I've seen. I haven't watched enough. Like you said, there's definitely only been so much that we can see, but the mechanics are pretty sound. He looks like a very athletic pitcher. And if he's already pounding the strike zone with 3 solid pitches like this is a name to watch because I think he's going to fly pretty quickly.
Here's one for you. Robbie Snelling. He's a big guy, 6'3", 210.
Yep.
So I was thinking, all right, like, is he physically advanced? He's strong as hell. So I went Googling on Robbie Snelling literally just now. He got offers as a linebacker from Arizona, Oregon, Arizona State, Auburn, Cal, Michigan, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Oregon State, Penn State, San Diego State, Stanford, Texas, Tulane, UCLA, UNLV, Utah, Vandy, Virginia, Wazoo. He was a Power 5 linebacker and a good one. LSU, according to 247, was the favorite to land Robbie Snelling as a linebacker.
So that explains the athletic pitcher I saw.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well there you go. Physically advanced, athletically knows his body really well, and that's how you have a high school lefty who pounds 3 pitches in the strike zone. Wow. That I don't know how I missed that. That is pretty crazy. Another lefty, college lefty, but had some murkiness around his draft status with a suspension and whatever came with it. But Carson Whisenhunt, Giants, guy looks like he could be a steal. And this is one of those situations where, another left-handed pitcher that when you have some murkiness to a draft profile, sometimes you can take those guys and it blows up in your face. Sometimes you take those guys and you pull off a heist. And it looks like Whisenhunt is going to be closer to the latter. Fastball is a 2,400 RPM pitch that sits 94 up to 96, 97. And it just gets on hitters quickly. He is another one of those just smooth mechanics, looks really comfortable. And it's pretty hard to deny the results so far from Whisenhunt. If it weren't for all of what came with his, all of the extracurriculars with his draft profile and that suspension, he probably would have been a top 15 pick. He falls a little bit because of all of that. And so far has really been fantastic. Has been dominating lower level hitters. It is worth noting, though, he is a college arm, so he should be dominating these hitters, or at least should be, have the advantage to a degree. But that said, he's still been really, really impressive.
So just to shed some light on the Carson Whisenhunt thing, it wasn't horse tranquilizer into his butt. He apparently tested positive for a chemical in a supplement that he got at GNC. He purchased a workout supplement at GNC, and he got suspended for that. So that's the shortcoming of the NCAA. Like there's a difference between what you can purchase without an ID fully legally. Like it's almost like creatine. Like if you tested positive for creatine, that's what happened to him. So it sucks. Like that's the burden of the NCAA. And now this guy has a quote unquote tainted name, but he was awesome at ECU. He's been awesome in the minor leagues so far. There's nothing not to like about this if you can get over the narrative.
Yeah, and I think you can. I mean, look, you can talk about the narrative as long as you want, but when you throw mid 90s from the left side with a plus changeup, which changeup might be plus, like that's the craziest part. His changeup is that Bugs Bunny just disappears, but on top of that, 75% strike rate on the changeup and a 40% swinging strike rate. No one's touching it. Opponents are 3 for 30 with a 51% strikeout rate against his changeup this year. Curveball has not been good at all. He's barely thrown. He's only thrown it 32 times, and he's thrown 20 balls. But that fastball changeup will send him straight to AA. He could probably succeed at AA with the fastball changeup. He just needs that curveball to be an average pitch, and I think he could fly through the minor leagues. Another top 100 consideration. I might want to see him succeed in AA. He's going to be right on the brink, and I think the curveball is a bit concerning just because I want to see 3 pitches. But again, another guy that's a candidate to very much make it to the 11th hour as we finalize, the updated list.
Love it.
Who do you want to hit on next? There's a few different names that we can bounce around from. Is there anyone on the top of your mind that you want to focus on?
I mean, Jett Williams and Cole Young are probably the 2 that I texted you about last night, and I was like, okay, like these guys are really hitting the ball well. You want to start with Jett?
Yeah, so let's go with AJ Smith-Shawver real quick.
Oh, yeah.
I'm such an ass for that. But as I was asking you, I was like, oh, AJ Smith-Shawver. So then we'll go to those 2 guys. So Smith-Shawver, Braves, this is another one of those, like an organization that never has a top 100 quote unquote prospect, but then has a bunch of guys that turn into big leaguers. Smith-Shawver will be a top 100 guy for us, or at least is a very strong consideration as well. That might not be on many lists before he debuts, because he might fly up the minors pretty quickly. 20 years old, 7th round pick in 2021 out of high school. And, when those guys aren't, don't have that first round or day one pedigree, I feel like lists are slower to come around to them. He also, is a 19-year-old in low A, pitched to a 5.11 ERA, battled some command issues, but struck out 103 in 68 2/3 innings. The Braves gave this dude the bump up to AA after 14 innings in high A, where he didn't allow a single run, struck out 23 and walked 4. I've enjoyed watching AJ Smith-Shawver pitch. He is very talented. Fastball is already sitting 95 up to 97, 98. I think he can flirt with triple digits. But what's most impressive, I think, is the pair of breaking balls. Slider is just nasty, flashes plus. Curveball just dives down, and I think that pitch flashes plus as well. Again, needs a little bit more consistent command of those 2, but he's shown to be much better with the command so far this year. I want to see a few more starts, but is another big dude, 6'3", 205, has some more room to fill out. I think he could be one of those guys that sits upper 90s with a pair of breaking balls like he has. This is a name to watch in the Brave system, and I think he's the best prospect the Braves have.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen him. Like this is just a guy that spawned for them. Like they do this often. But what I can tell you, 7th round pick out of Colleyville Heritage High School. So he was high school teammates with Bobby Witt Jr.
No way.
Yeah.
That's sick. That's
Yep.
super cool. That's super cool. So we'll see. We'll see if he can get up to the big leagues as quickly, but he's kind of on pace to potentially debut around his 21st birthday if he keeps going on this track here.
Yeah.
But man, I love the breaking balls. Obviously, the fastball is a plus pitch. So this is definitely a name to watch in Double A. Who I think if he shows well in that Southern League, they might want to get him out of there pretty quickly too, and get him up to triple, which he would be one of the youngest pitchers at that level.
Yep.
Jett Williams is a name that, we're hearing more and more about because I think how advanced he is of a hitter. But he's kind of been a little up and down this year so far in low A. But a high school guy going straight to low A, I think is in a league that is very hard to hit in is interesting. And I think this is a guy that has the goods to climb quickly for a high school bat. He's 5'7", 180. Very short, quick to the ball, puts the ball in play, makes a lot of contact. I think hits the ball a little bit harder than you'd expect from a guy from his frame. From what I've seen so far, the defense is a little bit lagging behind from what I expected, but the bat to ball skills are way more advanced than I was expecting. So Williams is a name that we're already seeing on top 100 lists. I'm very torn. I want to get an in-person look at him. I'm hoping I can go down there and see him because some of the video I've seen defensively is a little spotty, but when you have a guy that's straight out of high school, straight to full season ball, and he's making contact, at an 85% zone contact clip, great approach. He's walking a ton and has some speed and sneaky pop. You can see why a lot of people have this guy as a top 100 guy.
Yeah, so the 430 OBP jumped out to me. The other thing that jumped out to me was the cameo in center that he's made. He's made 3 starts in center field. So if this guy
kind of telling, by the way.
Yeah, so it could be, hey, he's a bad defensive shortstop, so we want to see him in center. It could also be this guy can play short and center, or this guy can play second and center. And those guys are really valuable, the ones that can play middle infield and center field, and there's always going to be a spot for him.
Absolutely. And I think that the fact that he's athletic enough where they want to try that, I think ultimately it's the second center kind of thing, like that Whit Merrifield, second outfield type of thing.
For sure.
Because I do think he can be a good defensive second baseman. I just think he might be stretched a little thin at short. But yeah, that's a great catch because if they're already putting him in center a little bit, that also is a great profile with the bat to ball, with the speed, sneaky pop, plays center and can play second. Like that's a very fun, that's like a better Samad Taylor, which again, I love those types of prospects. Like those are really fun players that you can fit into the lineup that have that floor of a utility guy. Obviously he's got a long way to go to prove that floor, but he seems like a very high floor bat. So with that positional versatility, a lot of intrigue there as well. Cole Young, is that the next name you wanted to hit on?
Cole Young, final name I wanted to hit on.
Cole Young is another one of those dudes that I think is just so advanced for a high school bat. And that was the word I was getting out of the draft. I was talking to Pete Flaherty. I was talking to a few others, and it was just like Cole Young is maybe the most advanced high school bat. You hear that. It's one thing to hear it. It's nothing to see it. It all kind of resonated with me when I watched him. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense now. Doesn't chase. 16% chase rate is insane. And remember, this guy that's playing shortstop in full season ball is a 19-year-old as well. Sneaky pop as well. 102 mile per hour, 90th percentile exit velocity is very solid. Slashing 292, 444, 433, or 443, excuse me. More walks than strikeouts, which I know is 100% why you flagged him, because I know we love that. And yeah, I mean, this guy, it's not like he's a slap hitter. He hits the ball hard enough. No home runs yet, but again, I'm not too worried about that. Could you speak to the environments out there? I know Modesto, isn't that supposed to be a pretty hitter friendly environment?
Very hitter friendly.
Yeah.
Very.
So it is interesting from that perspective, but that said, tons of extra base hits. He's got 8 doubles, 4 triples. I think the homers will come. I'm looking at the spray charts right now, and he has several hits this year that would have been out in Seattle, which is very bizarre. So it's interesting from that perspective, but, I'm not worried about the home runs because he's got an 888 OPS. He's walking more than he strikes out, and he just looks really good.
Yep.
Anything that, you want to talk about with Young? I know you probably can't see much with the low A video being kind of limited.
No, I mean, nothing much. Like the more walks and strikeouts is certainly why I flagged him. You have that spot on. But also like his ability to hit 300 at this point. He's a 19-year-old. Like, he and Jett Williams are in the same spot. And like, while Jett has been good with the approach, Young has been good with everything. And that's the thing that jumps out to me.
So last 8 games, he's only struck out 3 times and he's walked 7. He's been hit by 3 pitches. When you're getting hit by pitches the same amount of time you're striking out, you're either the most unlucky guy in the world because you're getting beaten all the time, or you never strike out. And I think for him, it's the latter. So that's really impressive there as well. I'm glad you flagged that name because I probably would have skipped over him. And honestly, that's a guy that I feel pretty good about in terms of his case as a potential top 100 guy as well, because of just how good he looks at his age. Another guy that I texted you about last night, and I know we talked about a lot in the Rays episode, Slavis Basabe.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to crack the list because of how limited his ceiling is, but a 22-year-old in AAA who's hitting 343, 391, 480, like 55% ground ball rate's a little concerning. But he hits the ball hard on the ground. He plays third. He can play short at a pretty good level. He can play second. This dude plays all over the diamond. You said I'm all the way in on the Durham Bulls. Like the Durham Bulls are just so electric of a ball club. I think Basabe struggles with the fastball, will kind of keep him out, but it's a name that you have to consider. Like he's hitting 343 in triple as a 22-year-old while playing all over the diamond. Basabe is a fun player.
Yeah, no, he's a fun player. And the thing that jumps out to me too is like, you weren't expecting power from Brujan. You're getting power from Basabe, but Basabe fills a similar role to what you wanted from Vidal Brujan, right? Bounce all over the diamond, be a consistent bat at a high batting average. I think that's what a Slavis Basabe can be. And it's nice because, like, hey, good things come to those who wait. They tried Brujan. It wasn't working. They found workarounds like Taylor Walls, who apparently is outperforming his baseball card and should be negated because he's not a good player.
Yeah.
But Slavis Basabe is certainly like what the Rays reward is for waiting and like not forcing Brujan into their everyday type situation. So do I think Slavis Basabe is an everyday player for the Tampa Bay Rays? No. Do I think he can quickly become a good utility man in Major League Baseball? Yes.
Which is what probably keeps him out of the top 100 list, but makes him a top 10 prospect in that system for the Rays, which is a very good system. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there.